My name is Dr. Ivan Pavlov. I'm 93 years old, and I still practice medicine in a quiet village outside Kazan in Russia. Most people assume I'm retired, but no, every morning I walk to my small clinic, sit in my wooden chair, and see patients the same way I have since I was 28. No computers, no fancy machines, just a notebook, a steady hand, and the wisdom that only time can give. In the past 6.5 decades, I've treated over 18,000 people. Many of them were elderly. Farmers, teachers, grandmothers, war veterans. Most of them were not wealthy, but they were resilient. And over the years, I learned something medicine school never taught me: how the little things, habits, routines, what we eat and drink, are more powerful than any pill. People often ask me why I'm still alive, still working, still sharp at 93. I smile and tell them, because I pay attention, not just to my body, but to my patients. I watch, I listen, and I compare. That's how I began to notice something strange, starting around 15 years ago. Several of my older patients, people who seemed stable and healthy, began showing very subtle signs of decline. They weren't having big strokes, no paralysis, no slurred speech, nothing dramatic. But little by little they started forgetting things, tripping more often, feeling dizzy for a few seconds when standing up. And then, one day, a patient of mine, an old friend, told me something chilling. "Ivan," he said, "I don't feel like myself in the mornings anymore. It's like my mind is full of fog." That word, fog, kept repeating in my head, so I started digging. And what I found shocked me. These people weren't having just senior moments. They were experiencing silent strokes, tiny interruptions in blood flow to the brain. They didn't knock you out, but they did damage you, quietly, gradually, and sometimes irreversibly. Now here's the part that made me stop and stare at my own teacup. Most of these episodes happened during the night, while the body was supposed to be resting, healing, regenerating. Something was going wrong. The brain was starving, even for a few seconds, and it left scars. So I started asking questions. What do you eat before bed? What do you drink? How do you sleep? Over time, a strange pattern began to emerge. One common element kept showing up again and again. Not everyone, of course, but enough to raise a red flag in my mind. One day, I visited an old woman named Raisa. She was 82, full of life, but had been falling asleep mid-sentence. Her blood work was normal, her blood pressure steady. But her son mentioned something that caught my ear. She always drinks the same thing before bed, never skips it. It was the same thing I had heard from dozens of other families. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to warn you. Because if you are over 60 and you're still drinking this common beverage before going to bed, you might be silently damaging your brain without realizing it. And the worst part? Most doctors never tell you. Not because they don't care, but because they're not looking for it. But I am. I've seen it too many times to ignore it. In the next few minutes, I'll tell you what this drink is, what it does to your brain, and what you should be drinking instead if you want to protect your memory, your balance, and your independence. Let's begin. For years, I didn't question what people drank before bed. In Russia, we drink many things: tea, herbal infusions, warm milk, even broth. It's a tradition, something to warm the body and comfort the spirit. But when I began noticing a connection between nighttime beverages and silent stroke symptoms, I had to look deeper. The most common drink I found among my elderly patients, both in Russia and in the letters I've received from the US, was simple: black tea, sometimes green tea, and in many cases, coffee or even hot chocolate. All of them seemed harmless. After all, they are natural, comforting, familiar. But they all share one dangerous thing: stimulants. Black tea contains caffeine and theobromine. Green tea? Caffeine too. Even decaf coffee is not truly caffeine-free. And hot chocolate. It may look innocent, but it carries stimulants from cocoa and added sugars. So what's the problem with a little stimulation before bed? When you're over 60, your blood vessels are not the same as when you were 30. The flexibility, the strength, the ability to regulate pressure, they all change. Your heart and brain rely more than ever on smooth, uninterrupted blood flow during the night to recover. But caffeine and similar compounds interfere with that process. Here's what happens. About 45 to 90 minutes after drinking tea or coffee, your blood pressure may spike slightly. Your body becomes more alert even if you're not aware of it. This stimulation doesn't just affect your sleep. It causes micro-fluctuations in blood flow. In younger people, the body compensates. In older adults, it may not. These tiny fluctuations, especially in people with borderline hypertension, can reduce blood flow to parts of the brain for just a few seconds at a time. That's enough. A silent stroke happens when a tiny blood vessel in the brain gets blocked or collapses temporarily. No warning, no pain, no dramatic collapse. But it leaves damage. It affects memory, speech, balance, or mood, depending on where it occurs. And because these strokes are silent, they often go undetected. Your doctor may never notice until it's too late. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying one cup of tea will destroy your brain, but I am saying that a habit, a repeated exposure to something mildly harmful, can do great damage over time, especially when done at the most vulnerable hour, just before you close your eyes. One of my patients, a retired violin teacher named Sergey, drank 2 cups of black tea every night. He believed it helped him relax. But over the course of 2 years, his family noticed changes. He repeated questions. He stopped recognizing familiar faces. An MRI later showed multiple silent infarcts, tiny strokes. The doctors blamed age. But I remembered that cup. He wasn't alone. Another woman, 79 years old, drank healthy green tea every night. She began losing her balance. Nothing major, but enough to cause a fall in the bathroom. Same story. That's when I began advising my patients to eliminate all stimulants after 6 p.m. The results? In many cases, their sleep improved, their mental clarity sharpened, the dizziness faded. No drugs, just one small change. I'll repeat it simply. Stimulants before bed after 60 are not your friend. You may think your body has adjusted, but your brain is more vulnerable than you know. And silent strokes don't ask for permission. In the next part, I'll show you the 3 subtle signs these silent strokes leave behind, signs that most people ignore until it's too late. Most people imagine a stroke as something obvious, a slumped face, a drooping arm, or slurred speech. And yes, when a major stroke happens, it's easy to see. But silent strokes don't work that way. They slip in quietly, often during sleep, and they don't leave dramatic warning signs. What they leave instead are whispers. And those whispers are easy to ignore, until one day they become a scream. Let me tell you the 3 most common symptoms I've seen in my patients who were suffering silent strokes and didn't know it. Symptom number 1, subtle memory slips. I'm not talking about forgetting where you left your keys. That's normal. I'm talking about asking the same question twice within 5 minutes, forgetting that someone called you yesterday, mixing up days of the week. People often laugh it off. Oh, I'm just getting old, they say. But memory doesn't disappear evenly. It weakens in patterns, and silent strokes, depending on where they strike, can knock out specific parts of your memory function without touching the rest. In one case, a former librarian came to me, complaining that she kept misplacing her reading glasses every single day. She swore she put them in the same place, but her brain wasn't recording the moment she did. That's not forgetfulness, that's damage. Symptom number 2, mild imbalance or clumsiness. Do you ever find yourself bumping into doorways more than usual, losing your footing for no clear reason, not falling down but catching yourself just in time? That's not always about muscle strength. Sometimes it's your brain's coordination center, the cerebellum, struggling to keep up. Silent strokes often affect this area in tiny ways, disrupting the smooth signals that tell your feet where to go or how to adjust when the floor isn't perfectly flat. I remember a man named Peter, age 74, who kept tripping on his own slippers. He thought his legs were getting lazy. But when I tested his balance, something wasn't right. Later, a scan revealed several microinfarcts in his brainstem, little clots that had gone unnoticed. Symptom number 3, emotional changes or loss of focus. This one is tricky because it can be mistaken for depression or stress. A once calm person becomes irritable. A cheerful woman turns withdrawn. Or you find it harder to concentrate on a simple task, like reading the newspaper. These changes don't happen overnight. They creep in, week by week, but they are real. And they are often the result of silent strokes in the frontal lobe, the part of your brain responsible for personality, attention, and decision-making. I had a patient, Elena, who loved knitting. But one day she told me she couldn't follow patterns anymore. She'd lose interest halfway through or forget where she stopped. Her family thought she was just bored. But she wasn't. Her brain was struggling. Now let me be clear. Each of these signs, on its own, might have another explanation. But when you're over 60, and more than one of these begins to appear without reason, you must consider what's happening underneath, especially if you're having sleep disturbances or drinking things at night that may be interfering with your brain's recovery. Silent strokes don't ask for your permission. They just take what they want. So if you've noticed any of these symptoms, or someone close to you has, it's not time to panic, but it is time to act. In the next part, I'll show you what I personally drink every night before bed and what I've recommended to thousands of patients to protect the brain, calm the body, and give your mind the deep rest it truly needs. When I started warning my patients about stimulants before bedtime, the first question they asked was always the same. Then what should I drink, doctor? They didn't want pills. They didn't want chemicals, just something simple and natural, something that worked. So I shared with them the same remedy my grandmother gave me when I was a boy. It's something we've used in my family for generations. I call it the Russian bedtime elixir. It's not magic, it's not exotic, but it works because it supports the body's natural rhythms, rather than fighting against them. Here's what it contains. 1 teaspoon of dried chamomile flowers, half a teaspoon of crushed valerian root, a small slice of fresh lemon, 1 cup of hot water, optional, a tiny spoon of raw honey, only if blood sugar is stable. You place the herbs in a teacup, pour hot water over them, cover the cup with a plate and let it steep for 7 minutes. Then you strain it and sip it slowly, at least 45 minutes before sleep. Why these ingredients? Chamomile is one of nature's mildest sedatives. It helps the body release tension and prepares the nervous system to slow down. Valerian root is stronger. It calms the brain by increasing GABA, a natural chemical that reduces overactivity in the mind. Lemon adds a touch of vitamin C and balances the flavor. And the honey, if you choose to add it, helps trigger melatonin, the sleep hormone. But beyond the science, there's something more important: ritual. When you create a calm, intentional moment at the end of your day, away from screens, away from stimulation, you are telling your body, it's time to rest. This alone improves the quality of your sleep. And deeper sleep means better brain repair, more stable blood pressure, and lower risk of silent strokes. Let me tell you a story. One of my American patients, a woman named Margaret, lived in Wisconsin. She was 76 and had been drinking green tea every evening for 20 years. When she heard my advice, she was skeptical. "Dr. Pavlov," she said, "I've always thought tea was healthy." I agreed, but I explained the difference between timing and toxicity. She agreed to try my elixir for 30 nights. By the 3rd week, her daughter called me, crying. Margaret had stopped waking up groggy. Her mood had improved. She stopped forgetting names. She even went back to painting, something she hadn't done in 5 years. This isn't a miracle. This is the body finally getting what it needs. Another patient of mine, Nikolai, a retired soldier in Russia, had suffered 2 minor strokes and was terrified of having another. I put him on the same elixir and told him to take it seriously. After 6 months, his sleep improved, his blood pressure stabilized, and his memory tests, while not perfect, no longer declined. He called it his night armor. This elixir is safe for most people. But if you are taking medications or have a sensitive condition, always speak with your doctor before starting any herbal remedy. This is not a replacement for medical care. It's a complement, a tool, a protection. If you've been relying on black tea, coffee, or sweet cocoa to unwind at night, I urge you, try this instead. Give your brain the quiet it needs, the calm it craves. Because when the body rests well, it heals. And when the brain is not fighting stimulation all night, it repairs the damage we don't even see. Now, in our final part, I will give you one last warning, and one lasting message of hope. Let me leave you with one final thought, something I tell every patient who sits in front of me. looking for answers, looking for reassurance. It's not too late to protect your brain. I don't care if you're 60, 70, or even 90 years old. As long as you are breathing, your brain is still listening, still changing, still capable of healing if you give it the chance. But that healing begins with honesty. If you've been drinking black tea, green tea, or coffee before bed for years, thinking it helps you relax, you are not alone. Millions do the same. It's comforting. It's habitual. It feels harmless. But when you're over 60, comfort must never come at the cost of clarity. Your brain is your greatest asset. And yet many unknowingly assault it night after night with subtle stimulants. The damage isn't dramatic. That's the problem. It's invisible. It's quiet. It's a slow erosion of function that often gets labeled as normal aging. It is not normal. You deserve more than foggy mornings and forgetful afternoons. You deserve focus, stability, memory, and independence. And all of those start with nighttime choices. So here is my final warning. What you drink before bed is not a small decision. It is a neurological investment, or a neurological debt. If you choose stimulants, you are borrowing energy from your brain at a cost it may not recover. If you choose calm, nourishing herbs, you are paying into your future, into your memory, into your peace. This isn't just about avoiding strokes. It's about living a sharper life. Now I know change is uncomfortable, especially when it challenges routines we've held for decades, but I've seen what happens when people listen and when they don't. I once treated a professor, brilliant man, who ignored my advice. "Come on, Dr. Pavlov," he said. "I've been drinking tea before bed since I was 30. He laughed. But 6 months later, his wife called me in tears. He couldn't remember her birthday. He got lost walking to the post office. Would this have happened anyway? Maybe. But maybe not. What I do know is that the brain is not built to handle continuous stimulation, especially at night, especially after 60. Now let me tell you something beautiful. Over the past 10 years, I've had letters from people around the world who took my advice. Some switched to the elixir, others simply stopped drinking anything with caffeine after dinner. And the stories they send me are remarkable. A woman in Idaho who said her headaches vanished. A man in Florida who finally slept through the night for the first time in years. A retired teacher in Ohio who began remembering students' names again, not because of a drug, but because they stopped poisoning their sleep. And you can do the same. You don't need to be perfect. Just begin. Tonight, make a choice your future self will thank you for. Replace the stimulant with silence. Replace the ritual with restoration. Replace the habit with healing. If this message has helped you, share it with your spouse, with your siblings, with your friends. Let it ripple outward, because the brain you save might not just be your own. I'm Dr. Ivan Pavlov. I've seen more than most men see in a lifetime, but nothing is more tragic than watching a sharp mind grow dim, simply because no one ever told the truth about what's in the cup. Now you know. Drink wisely, sleep deeply, and protect what matters most.